10-4 drivers, welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. This is where the real stories roll, straight from the blacktop.
Breaker 19 villains, you got your ears on. I'm your host Tony, and this is the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. Stepping out to grab the front door here on Sunday, July 27th, it's episode number 23, ringing wall to wall in your ears. First up, we've got our quote of the week this week. It's from the business world. And then over on the bulletin board, we'll grab a quick update on the ground shaker and teardrop story. In the pre-trip, this week I've got a LinkedIn post to talk about from Elissa Wallace. Her post was titled, "That Magical Freight Moment." No, not a magical freight moment like from the trucking book review last week. This is one you can share with your non-trucking friends. In the money line this week, we're going to stomp that high beam button on the floor and shine a light on customer service in trucking. Our guest this week, Deb LaBree, wrote a great article about trucking customer service a while back, and I'll touch on that. And with the customer etiquette guide coming out soon, let's crack a few eggs and start making a trucking customer service omelet here. Speaking of our guest this week, Deb LaBree joined the podcast. We had a wonderful conversation this week. I think it was our first high-speed interview. I talked to Deb while her husband was taking his turn driving. They are both BCOs, business capacity owners for Landstar, hauling specialized freight. And Deb has an amazing legacy of contribution in trucking, and we touched on everything from trucking to aliens. Is there alien life out there? Stay tuned to see if Deb has found any aliens in all those late night drives. And finally, fair warning, I've been listening to some early Bob Dylan during the making of this episode, so watch out. Lines like, "I know that highway like I know the back of my hand, running from up Wisconsin way down to no man's land." Anyone know that one? If you do, throw what song that's from in the episode Facebook post. Don't forget to hang around for the post trip. Let's get this rig rolling. If you're not driving, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends.
Paper breaker 19, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
At the Mid-America Truck Show, I had the fortune to meet up with Mike Barber, founder of Truckers Wealth. Both of us have a passion for understanding the uniqueness of truckers and sharing our knowledge wherever we can. Mike is a seasoned financial professional. He has over 20 years of dedicated experience serving the trucking industry. Truckers Wealth has created a specialized financial hub where truckers can receive expert advice and tailored solutions to build wealth, minimize taxes, and secure lifetime income for themselves and their families. Check out his website, truckers-wealth.com, and look forward to seeing him on the program here soon. Grab that safety vest and let's go do the pre-trip. Let's kick things off this week with a quote from Dale Dauten. Dale's a business columnist and author who's made a career out of studying workplace culture, innovation, and leadership. He's got a knack for cutting through the deaf and getting folks to think different. Here's the quote. "If you want to be creative in your company, your career, your life, all it takes is one easy step, the extra one. When you encounter a familiar plan, you just ask one question. What else could we do?" Let's put the four ways on and back this one up a minute, because trucking, yeah, it's about picking up and delivering freight. But if that's all you think it is, you're leaving a lot of value sitting at the shipper. What else could we do? That's a question that separates the gear jammers from the true professionals. It's the trucker who throws a strap on someone else's leaning pallet, the one who takes the time to walk the dock and build rapport. Sometimes it's as simple as the look on your face. I know this because at times I can be known to have a resting pissed face. The tone of your voice, the words you choose, Being a professional trucker ain't just about the miles, it's about the mindset. The difference in mindset between it being a burden or an opportunity. And hell yeah, it's hard. But it's part of what makes us us. Because it is harder. That in spite of all we go through, we still do that little extra too. To those of you who do it all the time or just when you can, thank you. You're extraordinary. And it's one of the main reasons we still have the respect that we do. And this week, we're going to come back to this theme a few times, over in the pre-trip, in the money line, and especially during my interview with Deb LaBree. Because when you start asking, what else could I do? You're not just doing your job. You're leveling up your business, your relationships, and bit by bit, the whole trucking industry. All right, let's swing by the bulletin board. Last week, I shared the story of Ground Shaker and Teardrop, and the response has been nothing short of incredible. Views, comments, shares, all the things you hope for when a goofball like me tries to do something meaningful with a mic and a keyboard. This story started as a simple post, a photo by Nick, then a comment, but then it turned into a conversation and then something more. Something that touched you, the audience, something that touched me, and most importantly, touched Nick and his family. People often ask me, what's the podcast about? And the truth is, I've had a hard time putting it into words. Yeah, I've got a podcast description, a website, and on the website, I've got a mission statement, a vision statement, a whole lot of words. But none of it really captured the feeling, that thing that's in my chest and in my heart that wouldn't let this podcast idea go. I've had a million ideas in my life. 99.9% of them don't go anywhere. And that's fine. But this podcast and the Channel 19 experience, it was stickier than fifth wheel grease in December. This ground shaker and teardrop moment helped me feel it a little bit more clearly. Nick said to me, "This is the coolest thing anyone has done for my grandparents. You brought a tear to my eye. Thank you. My mom's going to love this." And Vanessa, Nick's mom, wrote, "My parents were ground shaker and teardrop, and boy do I miss them so. Growing up a daughter of OTR truck drivers is something I would never change. I so appreciate you doing this with my son, Nick." And Nick and I are working together to bring more of this story to life. But even beyond the story, something else happened. Other truckers chimed in, talking about their own CB legends. And in all that, I found myself closer to understanding what Channel 19 experience is really about. It's that spark, that moment where you connect with someone you never knew existed. You don't know who touched who more, you're just grateful it happened. That's the heartbeat of this whole thing. I didn't live through the golden age of the CB. I caught the tail end of it when I started trucking back in the 90s. But this experience, this moment with Nick and now Vanessa and the others, it gave me a glimpse into what that era must have felt like. The reason folks formed CB clubs, the reason they printed and hand drew CB cards. And remember, getting cards printed back then wasn't like getting on the internet, hopping on Vistaprint and getting them delivered to your house in 2 days. It took time, intention, effort. They asked themselves, what else could we do? And they did it. They built those bonds, one breaker at a time. And I have to believe that somewhere in this world, or in the next, everyone who was part of their experience all those years ago is proud to see it living on right here, right now. The podcast exists to share those moments, to encourage folks to share their stories, to ask those small but powerful questions, the kind that open people up. Because yeah, trucking's tough. Like Shane Britt sings, it ain't for the faint of heart. It's dirty, it's bouncy, it rattles your bones and leaves grease stains on your soul. It's lonely out there on the road and for the ones waiting at home, but we polish the chrome anyway. We shine it up and show the beauty where we can, because this is an experience like no other. So stay tuned. There's more to come on the Ground Shaker and Teardrop story and others. We're just getting started. Finally, on the pre-trip, let's check all those marker lights one last time. You never know who's going to notice them. This week, I want to highlight a LinkedIn post by Elissa Wallace. Elissa's a Landstar agent. We've had a few Landstar folks lately. I swear I'm not on the payroll, but Landstar, if you're listening, shoot your shot. Anyway, her post was titled That Magical Freight Moment. And man, I stopped scrolling faster than my drive axles when I'm bobtailing in the rain and forgot my Jake brake was on. Here's what she said. You know the one. When your shipment is critical, customers waiting. You spend the night crossing your fingers, hoping that the truck shows up first thing. Then just before sunrise, you pull into the lot and you see this beauty all lit up and ready to roll. And she had a picture in the post of a Freightliner pulling a trailer in the middle of an empty lot. On time, secured, professional. That's peace of mind. Now, listen, if that doesn't give you a little bit of pride in what you're doing behind the wheel, you better check your oil pressure gauge. See, this is the part of trucking most people outside the cab never hear about. But folks like Elissa, they see it, they feel it, they appreciate it. You being there matters. Being earlier on time matters. The lights on your rig, the way you back into the dock, the clean tarp job. It all adds up. You might never meet the people counting on you. You might rarely hear a thank you. But make no mistake about it. You are noticed. You're counted on, and posts like Elissa's are proof that what you do, how you do it, matters more than you think. So here's a reminder from last week. If you hadn't already, get yourself on LinkedIn. It's different than TikTok, Facebook, and all the other social media platforms. It's where folks like Elissa hang out. People who get it. People who celebrate what truckers do day in and day out. It's a whole different perspective on this industry. And I think a lot of y'all would benefit from seeing yourselves through that lens. You're not in the offices very much, but you can be in the virtual office on LinkedIn where those people share their thoughts and observations, their concerns about the industry, their concerns about you, the truckers. And more than anywhere else on these platforms, their genuine appreciation for you and what you do. And finally, thank you, Elissa, for sharing your thoughts and feelings. That matters a lot to a lot of people. The pre-trip is complete. No defects found, but that's just my opinion. If you find defects, let us know. Get that seat adjusted. Let's push the buttons in. We've got work to do. Trans-Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. They've been in business since 1977, and they've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which of course is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA and mileage reporting, so your state-by-state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back. Let's put that turn signal on, hop out in the hammer lane, and knock out the money line. We've been weaving a thread all through this episode, starting with Dale Dauten's challenge to ask what else could we do. Then over to LinkedIn to meet Elissa Wallace, a Landstar agent, talking about that magical freight moment when a clean, well-lit truck rolls up on time and ready, reminding us that what we do matters more than we think. And that got me thinking. When folks ask, what's the point of being professional anymore? This is it. Because this business, trucking, for all its technology and TMS systems and rate sheets and KPIs, it still runs on trust, still lives and dies on relationships. When the market's down, when freight is slow, when everyone's scrambling for the next load, service is the edge that still cuts through. It's your leverage, it's your calling card. It's the difference between being requested or being replaced. And the best part, you control it. Not the broker, not the fuel prices, not the government, just you. It's easy to fall into the trap of it's not my customer. But that thinking That's a race to the bottom. And that brings me to a trucker who gets this better than most, Deb LaBree. Deb wrote an article a while back titled Just Whose Customer Is It Anyway? And it hit like a well-timed downshift. She tells the story of drivers showing up at a customer's office looking like they just crawled out of the sleeper after a demolition derby. Pajamas, slippers, foul moods, shouting at shipping clerks like they're the enemy. And then she drops this line. Really? It's not your customer? She lays it out plain. Whether you're leased on or running company freight, it's your customer too. Your appearance, your attitude, your words, they all represent more than just yourself. They represent your carrier, your agent, your fellow drivers, and the next driver to walk through that door. If you're the one walking in the door, scanning the paperwork, representing the carrier, the agent, the load, it is absolutely your customer. Because here's the thing. You might be the only human being that customer ever sees tied to that load. They never met the sales rep. They never heard the dispatcher. They don't care what the contract says. They care about how they're treated in the moment you show up. Now, we've all been to those customers where the dock is a disaster and the person at the window has the personality of a Michelin steer tire. But Deb reminds us, we don't answer rudeness with rudeness. We respond with professionalism. And here's the part that really struck me. Her story about a shipping clerk who looked completely defeated. Drivers had been cussing, yelling, venting. Deb didn't throw more fire. She did something nice. That's it. Just a simple human gesture. But it changed the dynamic. It brought somebody back. That's service. That's professionalism. That's ownership. And yeah, it's strategy too. No, you can't control every dock worker's attitude or every load delay, but you can control your side of the equation. And more often than not, that's what tips the scale in your favor. Sometimes, that effort starts with you making the first move. Yeah, it can feel awkward, like you're back at an 8th grade dance trying to be the first one to cross the gym floor. But kindness, helpfulness, professionalism, they thaw people out. And even if it's not immediately reciprocated, behind the scenes, it starts melting walls. You don't have to change who you are, but you can choose to show the best of who you are, even when it's hard. And that's the extra Dale Dauten was talking about. That's the kind of move that elevates you from just doing a job to owning your place in this industry. Sure, not every place is going to appreciate it. Some people still treat truckers like a commodity, but those folks, they pay for that mistake in ways they don't always understand. High employee turnover, missed pickups, poor communication, lost and damaged freight, wasted time. If you're an executive at a shipper or receiver, or an account executive at a broker, go spend some time where the truckers are. Don't just walk up to the boardroom, and that's the only place you know about your customer or your facility. You'll find out a lot about your company and your real culture by how truckers get treated. And if it surprises you, good. That means it's time to do something. You might even figure out some things about your bottom line that all your accountants and consultants won't find for you. This street runs both ways, my executive friends. The customers who do care, who notice, who remember the ones who show up clean, courteous, and capable, and ask for them again and again, they're winning. They get the benefit of amazing trucker partners. Deb and her husband have been rolling team for nearly 2 decades. They haul high-value, sensitive freight, and that work doesn't just go to anyone. It goes to people who can be trusted to do more than just drive. It goes to people who understand the weight of the customer experience. Now, I'm not saying everybody's got to show up in a 3-piece suit, but I am saying that a clean shirt, a calm tone, and an ounce of empathy go a long damn way in this business. It won't always get you loaded faster, but it will make your day easier. It'll get you invited back. It might even get you requested by name. And believe me, that's a feeling that you don't forget. Deb's going to tell us a little bit about that moment, because in that moment, the work meant more than just miles. It meant trust, it meant value, and in a world where so much of this job feels like a grind, those little flashes of recognition matter. Next episode, we're going to take this topic a little bit further with a full-on customer etiquette guide, just like we did with the fuel island and parking lot guides. We'll break down the do's, don'ts, and absolutely nots of representing yourself and your carrier. But for now, I just want to plant this seed. Whether you're leased on, company, or fully independent, whether you're hauling tires, turbines, or toilet paper, you are the face of the freight. Whether that's chipper as a chipmunk or rocking that Diesel Damas resting pissed face, you're the reputation that walks into the room before the rate ever hits the spreadsheet. And when you bring that little extra, it doesn't just help the customer, it helps you. So with that in mind, let's take a quick detour to line 4 and talk to someone who lives this philosophy every day, Deb LaBree, owner of Castle Transport LLC, Landstar BCO, business capacity owner, trucking coach, legacy image team member with the Women in Trucking Association, and so much more. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I'll see you on the flip side with the post trip. True TMS is a cloud-based transportation management system. Being in the cloud makes integrations faster and you're able to access the platform from anywhere. It has intuitive planning, on-demand reporting, and easy order creation, rating, and invoices, which turns tedious admin work into streamlined automated workflows. The folks at True TMS have decades of trucking and liquid experience, and they care about this industry. They don't just sell you a product, they're invested in your success. Visit their website, truetms.com, and of course, tell them Channel 19 sent you.
More than anything, this show's about bringing back the sense of community we used to find on the CB, especially good old Channel 19. No rants, no corporate spin, just long-form storytelling from someone who's been behind the wheel, built the fleet, hit rock bottom, and climbed right back up.
All right. Well, this afternoon, we've got a wonderful opportunity to talk with Deb LaBree at Castle Transport. Deb, so nice to meet you. Thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. It's glad to be here.
You've got quite a collection of trucking stories and things you've been involved with and in your transportation career, but curious, how did it all get started? What led you into trucking and what were you up to before that? And then how'd you get into it?
I think sometimes we know that somewhere in our life we're going to be doing a specific something. Even when I was a young teenager, I was the first one to have a car. So I was the first one to haul all the friends to the beach and to the parties and school functions and things like that. I just always loved the open road. Like, to me, it was just, I don't know, rite of passage, when you're young, to escape your little hometown and just go explore the world. But I was in cosmetology for about 15, 16 years, and I knew that a change was coming. And my husband said to me one day, he said, well, what would you like to do? And I'm like, well, you have your CDL. And I mean, what better way than spend time together, go trucking, earn a living? I mean, I want to go trucking. And he's like, well, if you want to go to school and get your CDL, I'll be, let's do it, So I went to CDL school in Kansas, and from there, we went, as a team, we went to a larger carrier and got my training. And then we went on to a couple of other carriers, and we were trying to find the kind of freight that we wanted to haul. And then we decided one day that, buying a truck was something, at our age, for what kind of a balance in trucking we wanted. We wanted to be able to kind of call our own shots. And sure. And so the rest is history. I mean, we got into a truck together, and 19 years later, we've been at it. We've been at it for 19 years, and we probably still have a good 5 or 6, maybe 7 more to go until semi-retirement, and that's our plan. But it's been a very interesting and exciting journey, and frustrating at times too. Let's face it. Trucking has its ups and downs, but overall, it's the kind of industry that, as a woman, you can come in. The steering wheel knows no gender. And you could make the same amount of money as your counterpart, and we've built a good life in trucking, and We had some of our own personal goals and dreams we wanted to see happen, and we've just because of trucking, we've just been able to purchase 30 acres, and we've built a home and a shop, and we've got everything ready now, getting it ready for retirement and all of that. But I wanted to hit the road, and he said, let's do it, and here we are.
Awesome. So all that time, as you two were owner operators together or contractors together, was that all with Landstar?
We have, our career started with Landstar in 2014. That's when we bought our first truck. And
Okay.
they had besides the reputation, we wanted to partner with a carrier that had a good reputation, that also had different kinds of freight we could explore. We didn't want to just stay. A lot of times, folks get their CDL and they go to a carrier and they just haul the same kind of freight. Everybody's doing general freight. They're running a dry van, and they're all doing pretty much the same kind of work. And we wanted to get into more specialized work. And so Landstar had the opportunities that we desired to do that. And so we bought a specialized reefer, and we had it customized. And so we can do T-Val, we can do aerospace, we can do government work. And so it opened a lot of doors for us and a lot of opportunities. And we've built a really nice business over the last 11 years. And I just got the call a couple weeks ago, I guess. I just hit my million-mile status with Landstar. My
Wow.
husband's right behind me, but I'm the one who drives nights. See, he does most of the loading and the unloading during the day, and then at night I take over, and then I make all the miles. So but he's right behind me on that. But we've built a great relationship with Landstar. They not only met the expectations, but they just blew us away with all the opportunities and the training that they were willing to give to see you become successful. And they're a 5-star carrier to partner with. If you're looking, there are a lot of people who get a truck and they want their own authority, and that's great too. You might work with different brokers, or you might have your own customers, but the kind of freight that we wanted to haul, we needed carrier backing. That's bigger insurance and things. You need the carrier backing. And so after a lot of homework and a lot of research, Landstar met, they checked all the boxes. And 11 years later, we say this all the time: we wish we had done this sooner. We wish we had gotten a truck and come to Landstar sooner. But we've built great relationships here, and we have fantastic customers here. And again, being able to do specialty freight, it takes you out of that general freight pool of everyone's competing for the same type of freight. And you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and say, what direction do you want to go into? And like I said, Landstar had so many options. And so a few years ago, we got our DoD clearances. We have secret clearance, and so we can haul explosives, arms, ammunitions, and explosives. We can do aerospace. We can do a lot of really cool, fun stuff. And I kind of feel like we started out. It's like with any job, you start out at the bottom and you work your way up. And this is how it's been in trucking. We started out in the general pool doing what everybody else was doing. And then we slowly started to separate and find our own way in what we wanted to build for our little one truck mom and pop, trucking company. And it has given us a great life. We're able to be home most weekends, so we have a good, now, after all these years, we have a good work and then home life balance. And that was, very important to us, because our health was very important. We got very serious about our health in 2020, And we're probably more healthy now than we were 10 years ago. So, but all of it, because trucking allowed us to explore these avenues and build something that was more tailored and custom fit to what our needs were. We now have a pretty great business, and trucking's giving us that. But we also have a great home life, and trucking's giving us that too. So very blessed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a choose your own adventure book, right? There's lots of ways to do it. And I think what I'm kind of hearing between both your personal story, your health journey, and your trucking journey,
Yeah.
being intentional about it, right?
Yes.
There's some exploration, but there's research, there's understanding that, the type of thing that we want to do probably is going to be difficult as a one truck fleet, but through a relationship with a special kind of company like Landstar you get the opportunity to do cool stuff that you want to do that makes it fun and engaging, with also the partnership that comes with working with somebody like Landstar.
And they're a carrier that truly celebrates. We're called BCOs, business capacity owners. That's what Landstar calls us. And so they celebrate all the wins, all the successes. They celebrate BCOs. They celebrate their agents. And like I said, I just got this call a couple of weeks ago about reaching my 1,000,000-mile status, and then there'll be another celebration come next summer. So they're very big on really celebrating the wins and successes throughout the Landstar culture, and it's really exciting because when, like I said, when you first get in and you're first finding your way, and you just go out there in the pool of mega carriers and all that, you don't really get that kind of relationship. And I think business, whether like when I still had my salon, whether it was one-on-one with customers that way, or being with our customers this way, I think trucking is very much relational, and I don't think drivers realize just how much of an impact, like when you go to your customer, and how you're dressed, how you speak, how you present yourself, you're representing your carrier. And for us, we're not only representing our carrier, but we're representing our little business, and then we're representing the agent who secured this business. So there's a lot of people involved, and so their customer is our customer, our customer is their customer. We all have a role in providing the best service to that customer, and we all take it pretty seriously, which makes the Landstar culture, again, something that was a great fit for us, because that's how we feel. This is, we're not just coming in, bumping a dock, and loading up freight. Especially with what we do, we're hands-on with point of contacts and everyone we come into contact with from start to finish. And you've got to put your best foot forward, and they have a job to do, and you have to help them meet it. So it's everyone's working together, and it makes trucking that much better, because you do hear a lot of the stories, and we like I said, in those early years, we could tell horror stories about it. We don't really sink our teeth into all that. We always try to maintain the positive, because with every industry you have your good and your bad. But in those days, when you would bump a dock at a warehouse somewhere, and 10 hours later you were still waiting to be unloaded, that was it's frustrating, right? That brings out a lot of frustration. And so we knew we wanted to serve our country, delivering goods, but we certainly didn't want to be sitting somewhere. I mean, I can remember those days. There have been times we were sit for like 22 hours or 23 hours, just under the cutoff for layover pay. It was a lot of, because 24 hours, then you'd get your layover pay. And so you, as drivers in those days, we didn't get the detention pay that the carriers got. So when you start thinking about that, and you start learning about the industry more than just from sitting behind the wheel, and you're like, there's niches here, there's niches in trucking, and we need to explore that and see where we fit, what we could do. And once we got out of the rat race of the general freight pool, we saw a whole different, it was just like, it's just night and day in trucking. And so I'm not saying that good careers can't be made in the general pool, but we wanted more. We didn't want to be sitting at a dock for 10, 20 hours, waiting to be either loaded or unloaded and then repeat it at the next location. We wanted to make money, but we wanted to have a healthy balance, and delays are going to happen, and communication is essential, but we wanted something different, and taking the time to learn about the industry. However, I'm going to back up, because we worked first when we finally got out of the big mega carriers. We went to a smaller carrier, which is not in business anymore, but lovely family that owned it. And I would pick their brains and ask questions, because I wanted to know more. A lot of things were coming down the pike, where back then, they were talking about the ELDs, and everybody was all, there was too many rumors out there. And I'm the kind of person, I want to get rid of the rumors. Tell me what's the rule, what's coming down the pike. How do we learn how to use it? How do we maximize it? And the ELD was a big deal, especially back in 09 and 10. It was, we knew it was coming. It was only a matter of time. And so that was going to complicate matters, right? So I started asking a lot of questions, and the owner, his name is Chris Coles. He spent a lot of time teaching my husband and I, and just talking to us, teaching us about what goes on behind the scenes, not just the drivers taking the freight from point A to point B. And I've had 2 businesses before, so I'm more of the business. I want to learn, I'm like a sponge. If you're going to teach me, I'm going to learn, And he told me there is a bigger world out there, and we should explore. And so a few years later, when we wanted to buy a truck, I went to him and I said, here's our thoughts, and what are your thoughts, and any advice? And so, extremely encouraging. And when I said, after the homework I had done, that we were very interested in Landstar, he was extremely encouraging and said, you're going to make a great career for what you and Dell want. That's my husband. For what you and Dell want and what Landstar offers, you guys can build a really, really specialized career there. And that was it for me. I had a lot of support from someone who already owned a trucking company. I think they had about 80 or 90 trucks at the time. And so it was great to learn behind the scenes before I bought the truck. And then OIDA has, at the time, they had some, online courses, and you could take just to kind of general knowledge about owning a truck and what it entails. And I, of course, took that, but that's my nature. Before I do anything, I'm going to dive in and try to learn as much as I can before. Our first truck was $80,000. That's a lot of money to be investing. Can we do this? And I tell this story because it's so true. The very first time the engine light came on, I burst into tears. I'm like, oh my God, but
It's over.
It's right. It's over. It's like, oh my gosh, that's it, and it's, in this case, which is funnier, it turned out to be like a $3 item. And it was just something so simple, right? But that fear, but once I got past it, and the engine light came on again, and then again, and you're like, yeah, we know what that is. Now you just know, oh yeah, it's a sensor, just call the shop and make an appointment, but those first months, something would happen. Oh my God, I burst into tears. Did we make the right decision?
Right. The whole fight or flight mechanisms kick in. And...
Yeah. Oh yeah. But 11 years later, like I said, I wish we'd done it sooner, I wish we, had done it sooner. But I think you take the journey you take to appreciate where you are. And many of my fellow BCOs, we've built some really good friendships with other teams here, and we all have very similar stories about that. Man, wish we'd done this sooner. Wish we'd come to Landstar, bought a truck, and found these different specialized niches to get involved in. And it's been a wild journey, and one I'm so thankful, because again, in those early days when you first get your CDL and you come out here, there's just things that school can't prepare you for, especially as a female. And hygiene issues being one of them, right? Like, wait a minute, there's no shower in the truck, there's no what about all these things, and so it definitely a journey, just a journey. And you think to yourself, at the time I had been in Florida for 20 years. I hadn't driven in snow, and now I get my CDL, and we start with a company in like late August, and they always seem to send the newbies where the freight rates always go up, like in the northern part of the country, and they'll send you up there, and I'm running across 80 in like, I think it was September, October, in this blizzard. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing out here? Why did I want to do this again? I'm this giant truck, and it's snowing, and the wind is blowing, and it's terrible out here. Why did I want to come out and do this again? But, once you get through a lot of those beginning trials, it becomes a rhythm. And, they say diesel gets in your blood. I think there's a bit of that. There's truth to that. Like when you go home and you've been home for a couple of weeks, you think, it's time to go back. You don't know why, but yeah, road calls, it's time to get back to work. Let's pack up and go. And we do that. But like I said, I'm a lot more fortunate because I'm a team with my husband. We get to travel and do all of this. So and we get to do it together. And so huge blessing. Trucking's been a huge blessing for us. So
Nice. Yeah, one of the things you touched on a moment ago around, being an extension of basically the customer experience team for whoever you're hauling for, right? And recognizing that kind of one of the values that you and your husband could bring to the table is that customer service mindset, and then looking for freight that kind of also values customer service, higher value or more sensitive or all these other things, and kind of finding the match for yourself. Like my brother and some of my buddies, like they haul oversize and a bunch of stuff that entails like mechanical work, and
right.
they have aptitude and an enjoyment of that stuff. And so they found something that fit for them, right? I was never that guy. I would have been the guy on, the Facebook page with my load sitting half off the trailer or something stupid, because I wasn't that mechanically inclined. So, you kind of figure out what you're good at and what has value about that, and figure out how do I find the right match to make it most worth everyone's while.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, and that's okay. Everyone has their I think everyone finds their niche, and then once you do, and you find your strengths and weaknesses, and you embrace that, and I think it's a great match. And for those who do oversize, and we actually looked into that. That was one of the areas we looked into, but it just wasn't where we felt we would be good. I didn't feel, especially for me, I didn't feel it would be something I'd be that good with. What I love about the equipment we did choose, like I said, it's all specialized on the inside. We have wood flooring and all of that, but we always said that if things got really, 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 really bad, what are the two things for sure that have to move? And that's medicine and food. And our reefer would keep, we could always take the wood floor out, because in the food arena, you have to have a ribbed floor, which is underneath. And, we added a lift gate. So we have a lot of extra equipment on here, and we could do, like, we would survive whatever the downturn was. We just felt like if we make these decisions, figure out what we want to do, and then the equipment we buy, let's buy equipment that will sustain us even if things get really bad. If things got really bad, we saw a touch of that, right, in 2020. And how blessed were we? We were busier than crazy because we were running vaccines all over the country. And so while other small businesses, and it was heartbreaking to see, show freight wasn't moving, as an example. I don't know about heavy haul. I don't suspect a lot of heavy haul was moving, but there were a lot of even the special niches were not moving. And so we stayed busy. We stayed busy during that time, and we ran the vaccines, and so again, like I said, for us, we really put a lot of thought and research into the kind of equipment we wanted to buy, and that was our decision, right? And we have friends who like a heavy haul. We have friends that that some of them have just invested in canvas side because the freight they're hauling is canvas side is required, and they've upgraded to a 53 instead of the standard 48s. And so everyone has, and again, that just comes back to our partnership with Landstar. The people who come here, and I can't speak for the whole 10,000 BCOs, but the teams that I know personally, and we have a nice, like I said, group of teams that we know, those who have come here with the mindset that the customer is important, but we're important, and the carrier is important. Everybody has an important role, and we respect those roles. And then we've invested in equipment to meet those needs of the customer. Like when we invested in our liftgate last year, we primarily did it for a customer that moves aerospace, and it's a very specialized stuff. And so we said, you know what, we do a lot of work with this customer. This customer is very valuable. It's not, the liftgate's only going to enhance our business. It's not going to hinder it in another area. And we went and purchased a liftgate and then had it installed last year. And we've been able to do a lot of special projects for this customer. That's customer service. The customer is thrilled. This customer gets the same group of teams who have this very specialized equipment. So he always knows who's coming. So it's a relief for him. He knows we have the right E-Tracks. We have the right, that the reefer is California compliant. We can go anywhere with it. We have the right load bars. We have the right straps that are specially required for some of this freight. Everything has been custom ordered and purchased to satisfy very, very high-end customer needs. And so when you do that, I know the customer always says, man, it has been such, for them, it has been such a relief, because before they didn't know who was coming, and they didn't have the right equipment, and they didn't even carry load bars to secure this. Some of this equipment doesn't have a price tag because it's a one of a kind. You got to have what you got to have to, and so they made a partnership with Landstar because Landstar had teams that had made investments in very specialized equipment and care about the equipment, care about the customer, take care of the customer, move the freight safely from point A to point B. And so it's a direct line. They can call, they can text, they can communicate any way that they need to. They can do directly. They don't have to go through a carrier, through dispatch to all this. They can deal with us directly, and it is so rewarding when we get there and the customer is just so happy to see us. I mean, they're in the early days, they're okay, just we'll call you when a dock is open. It's a whole different ball game. It's a much different caliber. And so no regrets in taking care of our customers. They have been so good to us, and we hope to continue to keep providing the service that that they need to move these very special items. And
a lot of that
it's an
a lot
honor.
of that stuff is, it's
it gets better and it gets more efficient based on trust in one another. But the first step usually in this business of building that trust is the little things, like you said in the beginning, like showing up prepared, showing up. And you talk about it quite a bit in your article too that you posted, and I'll share that out, which is, you know, how you present yourself, how do you talk to people, how do you open up a conversation with somebody in a way that's welcoming and starts on a journey towards trusting one another. And yeah, sometimes trucking's transactional, but there's kind of always room to insert the potential, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression at times.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
all those things help.
Yeah, true. Very true. Very, very true. I mean, like I said, even when we, first started out, when we went into the shipping office or the receiving office, we were properly dressed, properly mannered, just, I mean, even if they weren't, we had a situation, and I don't know if I touched on it in that one particular blog. I wish I had time to keep writing, because we've just been, I mean, fortunately, we've just been very, very busy. And then with building at home, we've just been with that. But we had one customer that I walked into the office, and she was just, I mean, she was just, but I could tell she wasn't angry at me directly, and I didn't do anything, but I could just tell she was having a bad day. So I went out back to the truck, and I said to my husband, I said, do you have any more of your stash of Snickers? Because he's a candy bar guy. And he's like, yeah, I got a couple. I said, give me one. So I went inside and I just slipped it in the window, because, they have the glass almost like a bank tellers, and I slipped it underneath, and she looked at it, and then she looked up at me, and she just burst into tears, and she was just like, I can't thank you. I mean, she came out and then she hugged me, and then after that, a relationship was born, because we were consistently in there for a while. And I'd come in and say, oh, hi, and I'd say, hi, we're a little bit early. Just want to let you know we're here, but sometimes, I think drivers, and I think people in general, I shouldn't just say drivers, someone behind the desk is having a bad day. It's not really about you, it's about their day, right? 50,000 drivers coming in there. The docks are, production is a little bit slow. They've had issues. So now they've got all these trucks backed up and everybody's hollering. Sometimes you got to step back and say, hey, maybe a candy bar might work in this situation,
Something, a smile.
something, yeah, smile, right? Don't be yelling and hollering and then standing there and hovering over them. I mean, they can't make the dock move any faster than you can, so, try to be patient and work with them. Try to be a, problem solver, not a, don't add to it, and that's just how we are in general. And that's how we are as people. We, carry that over. But I feel, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, the reality is, like, a lot of these contract deals, these freight agreements, this stuff happens, from some person from some office and another person from the other company's office. And yeah, maybe the agent meets somebody at the office, but like on a transactional level, you may be the only person or one of the few people who actually interacts with the representatives from wherever you're picking up or wherever you're delivering. Like they weren't sitting in those meetings when things were discussed, just like you weren't. And so they know each other, the sales rep or the agent and the the shipper or the receiver, whoever's controlling the freight. But this is the only face you may see of them, and that they may see of you on the freight hauling side.
Preach it louder. Because yeah, I mean, seriously, because even with Women in Trucking, we have a driver Facebook page. It's got over 11,000 members on there, and a lot of times, especially with newer drivers coming through, we have a lot of new drivers come in, and that has to be said quite a bit, because they go in there and then they'll say, well, somebody on the dock told us this, and it's like, it doesn't really matter what somebody on the dock said. That's not what was contracted. So you need to let your carrier talk to the person they talk to, whoever their point of contact is, because no matter what the dock people say, they're not the ones who are involved in the contract. And they just load the freight or offload the freight. And that's not demeaning them. That's just not their role. Their role is to do what they're doing. And for them to tell you what you should or should not be doing is not part of the, you guys were not part of the contract between the carrier and the customer. And you need to let them sort that out. And because it comes up a lot that things are said or things that should be done, or they get mad at a dock worker. And well, again, that's, you shouldn't be doing that. That's, let the people that, now see, that's what's different in the freight that we haul now. That's actually really, I'm glad you kind of touched on that, because now in our career of where we are now, from where we started to where we are now, we actually are now part of those talks. We not sign the contracts, but we are part of those talks. It'll be the agent will come to us and say, okay, here's a customer is thinking about signing on here. And again, I'll use this last one, but we don't have any lift gates on any of the specialized reefers with DOD clearance and the list of all the requirements. Only one truck has, and we're going to need at least 4. Will you go meet with the customer if you're willing to? Yeah. So we went and met with the customer, found out what the specs were, what they were going to need. Then after we had it done, we brought it and let them showcase. Their CEO was in town. We let them showcase it to their CEO to see what now was invested in their projects. And so we got to be a part of that now, where in those old days, especially with the mega carriers, they all have their own people that we just we just move the freight. We're not part of the talks or negotiations or any of that. And we don't, of course, talk about rates or any of that. That's between the customer and the agent, or agent / carrier here. But we were a part of finding out what the customer's needs were, how we could solve the problem, what we could do to meet those needs, and really whether it was worth the investment, right? I mean, $25,000 for a lift gate, is it worth it, right? What's your ROI on that? And so, but again, at least now I don't cry every time a light comes on, right? So that's the good news. No, but and it turned out, especially, like we'll be somewhere, we've offloaded, and all of a sudden the phone will ring and said, "You guys have a lift gate?" Yeah. Would you be interested in, and I'm right there. And so I don't even have any deadhead. I'm right there. They need a lift gate because, well, they needed it to offload. I'm sure they need one to reload, so it's kind of great. It not only helped that customer, but it opened the door to last minute. What that last minute freight is fantastic. It's great rates, and I'm right there already on site, so I've already been cleared, and I can say to my husband, we're going to go over to that building now, we're reloading and we're heading out. All right, that's great. We get to serve the same customer and help them through an emergency situation. Of course, a lot of places we go, they don't have docks. There's no docks, just like with specialized, with the heavy haul and stuff, there's no docks. These guys are moving it with cranes and all this other stuff, right? So, well, we have a portable pallet jack, we have the lift gate, so we're moving it as well. So well, I take credit, but I shouldn't. My husband does the heavy lifting, but we, but what I mean is that we're able to do that, so we don't have to worry about them trying to find a mobile dock or any of that. We can, immediately serve that customer, immediately get things to them, and they don't have to scramble around. And time is, a lot of this freight is also time sensitive. So we're not wasting time for them. We're able to immediately, even if they didn't order the lift gate and they go, oh gosh, we can't get a portable for several hours. Well, we have a lift gate. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh God, thank you so much. And it builds the relationships further, right? I mean, some might say, well, did you bill them for that? We're not those kind of people. If it gets the product off my truck, you know what I mean? If it gets the job done and it services this customer, we do
Yeah,
that.
sometimes you got to be the one who pays the
That's
toll
right.
first, right?
Right. That's well, I mean, really,
Yeah.
and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand what Deadhead is all about. It's the same thing. You're investing in your business to make money. So there's a lot there, right? And so if you do a favor, would be considered a favor, right? So if you do a favor for that customer and they remember that, they might order that truck again. Those are
Yeah, instead
all
of
good
looking,
things, right? It's
instead of
all
you
good
being the
things.
emergency stopgap, next time they just meet by like, hey, when are the LaBrees coming into
LaBree.
town? Maybe we
Yeah,
should just schedule the load to happen then, because they seem to always have
right.
the right equipment. And we like dealing with them the first time.
Right. And that's that and it's I have to tell you, the first time this happened, it's been some years now. The first time we got a call from an agent that said, "Hey, a customer requested you." I have to tell you that like it almost brings tears to your eyes even now, right? It's just, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. They love the service we provided, the whole thing, the whole experience. And when they request you like that, um, and now we get it quite a bit, but even that first time, I said to my husband, I said, so and so, could you believe they called and they asked for us? He was like, man, that's awesome. Like you really feel it's different than being dispatched out. It's a whole different feeling when a valued customer um, partnered with Landstar, however many years they are with Landstar, and they say, "Hey, are the LaBree still, running pharma? Yeah, we'd like to have them if they can be out here on a Saturday." Call,
Yeah.
of course we will. We'll be there with bells
Right.
on. We'll be there. Yeah, absolutely. And then later we wound up solving a problem for them, which made us more money, but saved them some money. And we helped them out for several months until they got things situated. And I think relationships, I know you say contractual, and yes, all of that is there, but I think the relationships are still the most valuable. I think especially with the way freight has been up, down, sometimes it's booming and sometimes it's deader than a door. Those of us in relationships with our customers, I think, are surviving better than those that are in contractual, if that makes sense. I think we're in
Yeah.
a relationship era right now, and don't do it for the business. Do it because it's who you are, and that's just who we are. That my husband's more of the outgoing, so when he's out there, I mean, everybody knows him, and they know me. I'm the phone. I take care of all the paperwork, and we all have our, again, strengths and weaknesses. I'm the business side, and he's the truck side, and so and nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Some will say, "Oh, well, the woman should do this." And listen, we all have our roles, and that's why we're a well-oiled team, right? We're a well-oiled team. I mean, we just, it's just easy for us. And so I make all the appointments. I take care of all of that stuff. So they know me, but visually they know him. As soon as he pulls up, "Oh, Del, hey, you're great to see you." So we go through our check-in processes and all that. And so, but it's a great feeling because we're welcomed, and we just had a customer the other day said, "Oh man, I'm sorry, this is not a multi-stop one, but at least I can get you out of California." And we just said, "We're thankful. We're just thankful. Thank you thank you for thinking of us. That matters more, but it's all on relationships, and they're good to us and we're good to them, or we do our best to be good to them. And and I think in the end, I think a customer, especially the higher end, I think they would rather have the relational team show up than just blasting it out to anyone to come show up. And then they have to worry, is it going to get there? Is it going to be strapped in right? Is it going to be damaged? There's a lot of
Yeah.
worries for those customers. And so
Or if the truck breaks down or something happens, How
And
invested
that's
are they in the relationship to want to cover that load versus they view the carrier as or the carrier views the shipper as transactional. Like I was on the shipper side with Cargill for a while, and you definitely wanted, there's certain situations where, yeah, it may be cheaper to have the contractual only relationship, but trucking doesn't always go as planned. And there's a lot of
that's right.
days where you're going to need to lean on that relationship together to get through it successfully.
Well, and that's actually a good point. And I think, again, one of the blessings, and we have extraordinary teams, and I can't really shout that loud enough. We have extraordinary teams here at Landstar that do all different parts of these niches, right? And we all take care of each other. So being that I own my truck and trailer, and Team B owns their truck and trailer, Team C, et cetera, Landstar doesn't own any capacity. They have trailers, but they don't have capacity. They don't have specialized trailers like ours. They have dry vans. I think they have some flatbeds. Anyways, if God forbid my truck was to break down right now, I can call a team who will come and rescue my load and deliver it, and vice versa. We had a team last year, to no fault of their own. A car was driving on the wrong side of I-40 in Oklahoma City, and then she couldn't get, the team couldn't get out of the way. This car kept following their headlights, hit them head on. Of course, their truck was totaled, and they were carrying very specialized freight. And we live in the Joplin area, so we got the call that some friends were in an accident. We just dropped what we were doing, jumped in the truck, went down, and as soon as the everything got cleared for us to take the freight, there's a lot of things, towing companies, they're not going to release anything until they get their money. So after they got their money, and we were able to get that freight to the base on time on the East Coast, and there was no blip. There was just no blip in communication, in securing the load, because we knew that team had a lot to contend with, and the freight needed to be watched 24/7. It was very high value. So we, like I said, shot down to Oklahoma City, and they wouldn't let us in the gate where the load was. So we had to sit outside the gate. We took possession of the load so that they could go and take care of, they had to go, we needed to go get them checked out. They had to deal with insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a nightmare with all that stuff. And we didn't want them now worrying about a load they were responsible for. So we are a well-oiled group of teams that will, in a minute's notice, be there to cover somebody in need. And so whether it's a breakdown, an accident, sickness, doesn't really matter. If there's an emergency, one of us will drop what we're doing. Whoever's free will drop what they're doing and go and secure loads and rescue, whether they have to go into secure hold at a base or be delivered or whatever it takes to make sure everything is good. We look out for each other. And again, I think it's the caliber of people who have come to Landstar. And again, I can't speak for all. I can only speak for this beautiful group of teams that I have the pleasure of friendship with, that have come to Landstar. We came to build a business. We came to build relationships. We came to find our niches. But that, when you talk about, like, Cargill has capacity. So if one truck breaks down, they just dispatch another, comes, takes the load, or goes whatever. They don't have that at Landstar, so we have to look out for each other.
Right.
And it's the right caliber of people that don't even think twice about it. And you don't say, you're going to pay me for the, it's, let's just take care of, you guys go take care of what you need to, and go get some sleep. This is traumatic after a head-on collision, and we'll take care of the load, and don't you worry about a thing. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter, do we get paid for the load, or we put this much money. None of that. That's not the caliber of persons that we are in this sector of the trucking industry, and it sets us apart. And that's again, it's protecting each other, but it's servicing our customer one way, shape, or form. We look out for each other, look out for the freight, look out for the customer, and in turn, really looking out for Landstar, because it's, we're all partnered in this. And so if we're not doing our part, they can't do their part. So the agent, when the agent found out, they were like, oh, you guys, thank you. And like, no, don't even, this was, we didn't even think twice about it. I said to my husband, I said, so-and-so, they've been in a head-on collision. They're okay, but we got to go get their freight. We were still in pajamas. Didn't matter. We just jumped in showers, jumped in the truck, and all, off we went. We got to at least have a shower, but with no questions asked. And that's the kind of team the customer is also getting. Ones that don't blink an eye. Your freight is important to us. Our teams are important to us. Our friends are important to us. And we're going to try to help everyone right now, because help is needed. And it's a different kind of brotherhood, sisterhood of trucking. Well, no one can pull off on the side of the road anymore because insurance companies don't like it. You can't duct tape things back together, helping drivers on the side of the road, but we can help them differently. And this is our brotherhood, sisterhood. For me, it's sisterhood, right? For my husband, it's brotherhood. But the sisterhood of trucking is very much there. This is how we look out for each other and how we help each other. Because doing this freight, it's a heavy responsibility. Yeah. And you can't just leave a load of that kind of value just sitting there. You just can't do that. So,
well, that's awesome.
It's a very unique, like I said, I know our journeys are for a reason, but at the same time, I'm like, gosh, I really wish we would have come here sooner. I wish we would have done this sooner, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful for every bit of it. Thankful for every bit of it. Yeah.
Well, a couple fun questions before I let you go for the day.
Okay.
All right. This one I'm sneaking in on you. I didn't warn you about this one. So let's say Elon goes crazy, goes mad scientist, and he comes out tomorrow and autonomous trucks take over the world. What do you think you would do the day after?
The day after? Well, yeah. I'm of a certain age, so it could go one of two ways. I could retire. I'm that close. No, but I've often joked about this, and I say, autonomous or not, it still probably needs somebody in there, right? You still need somebody in the vehicle because it's not always going to work. So I'm going to have to take another course online and learn, right, how to control the panel or something. And really, don't underestimate Elon, because these things could happen, So yeah, but I don't know. It would be kind of interesting, because we were saying, well, those trucks would probably need like one person in them, because still autonomous can't do everything yet, right? So
and it's going to break, like all this,
and it's going to break. Something's going to happen. But could you imagine? I do see it in some of the Teslas right now, which freaks me out. But could you imagine being able to read a book while the truck is going? Like, you're sitting up front, but you could still read a book because the truck's driving by itself. Yeah. I don't know. I think it'd be, unless they have some in-dash games or something to keep you occupied, I think it would get boring. It would be boring, but I guess you could come in the back, take a nap. I don't really know, but I'd be curious, right? Because to me, there's always something else to learn, and I'm not that old that I can't learn something new. And I don't know.
Gotcha.
Retire or learn. I don't know. I would have to be curious. I'd have to at least do one East Coast, West Coast, just to see what it was like. I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
how many
Right? I
times in your
mean,
life do you get to be on the like cutting edge, the frontier of
right.
kind of a new age?
Yeah, I'm a Gen X. I mean, I'm older than Google, for crying out loud. So if I can learn Google, right, I can learn that. Right. So, oh, too funny, too funny. All right,
All
what's
right,
your
so
next
last one.
one? Okay.
Any supernatural experiences out on the road? Are you willing to admit any ghosts that you've seen? You know, the truckers sometimes see the black dog, or sometimes it's just dehydration, of course, or something
Well,
else.
it's dehydration, but one of the things I was most looking forward to coming out on the road, traveling the country, and I drive nights, is
Yeah,
I was looking forward to UFOs because,
right.
well, the tabloids in the supermarket have been, showing this for years and years and years. I'm waiting 19 years. I'm
Dang
waiting
it.
for this UFO right now. I
I
have
thought
seen
this was going to
some
be like claim
lights,
to fame, all these
right?
night
Yeah, no
drives of
claim,
yours. Surely you, if anyone's
right?
seen them, you have.
It would be me, right? But you want to know what's even funnier? In all these years, I still haven't seen the Northern Lights either, and they exist. So,
Yeah.
now I've seen the shooting stars. I've not seen the black dog. Um, but I haven't seen a person in a road, thankfully. I do believe that's fatigue and dehydration. I do
Yeah.
believe that. But we've seen all kinds of animals, people, real people walking real
Yeah.
people,
Oh
especially
yeah.
when you go out west. For some reason, they like to take their belongings and run the interstates up there. But Pacific Northwest is where it's most prevalent. But no, not even the UFOs. I mean, my husband's been looking for Bigfoot. No Bigfoot sightings, no UFOs. I've seen some lights, but then they were explanations for them, so they're not really UFOs. They were just lights. But I look, believe me, I look, because that was my biggest, like, it's going to happen now. I'm going to be able to prove the supermarket tabloids are
Did you
correct.
ever did you ever listen to like Art Bell? Was he still around? Did you ever listen to that on the late night
God, that's a
radios?
long time. I know it's been years. Oh my gosh. No, not really. I wasn't really into that, but I mean, the supermarket tablet. I mean, come on, people were abducted by alien. It was always, and I've laughed because I said, ever since cell phones really got cameras, ever since everyone started carrying a cell phone, all of a sudden the
Yeah,
UFO
the
sightings
ghosts are
started.
gone.
Yeah, the ghosts are gone and all of that. But
Random things moving in your house
yeah,
unexplained. That doesn't
well,
happen anymore.
you know, which is kind of funny because many years ago, before they passed away, my mother-in-law had stayed with us for a while, and we came home once. We were gone for like 6 weeks, and we came home once, and she said, "Oh, she was talking about George or somebody." We said, "Who are you talking about?" "Oh, well, the farmer ghost that lives here." And we lived in the, we live in the country, and realized there's a ghost. We've been here for 8 years. We never seen no ghost. So I think if you're like if you're open to it, I'm sure. I've never really bought into the ghosts and all that, but for fun I had hope I'd
Right.
at least see a UFO, and nothing. Shooting stars and the most beautiful sunsets ever. 19 years worth of beautiful sunsets, but yeah, no paranormal stuff, sorry.
All right. Well, you hang around military bases and stuff, so maybe you've got our
You never
eyes on
know,
the
something
ground
could
there
happen.
for us.
Yeah, well,
Well, thank you so much, Deb. It's been an absolute pleasure to finally talk to you, and I really thank you for taking the time to share your stories and your journey with the rest of us.
thank you for having me. I really enjoyed being here.
We're talking trucking life, uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories, and the miles in between. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark.
Welcome back. If you take one thing from today, let it be this. Every time you roll up to a dock, you're not just delivering freight. You're delivering trust. You are the face of the freight. Quick reminder to pay a visit to our friends of the show on social media. Of course, visit Deb LaBree. She's on LinkedIn and Facebook. She also has her own website, awomantrucker.com. Have a look at her work. Truly an amazing career as a trucker and ambassador for truckers and women truckers. Check out Big Cal over at Truckin' with Coffee and Cal. He's been taking his kids along with this summer, and they're having a great time of it. Of course, I-95 truckers, check out Al's photos over there. Chris Barber, he got through the circus act of logic the Crown put forth this week at his sentencing hearing. Now he's awaiting the final outcome, which it looks like that's got pushed back a little bit, so he'll have to wait a little longer. And a quick reminder, once again, to consider joining LinkedIn and see what that perspective on what you do reveals. Coming up on the podcast, I told you we had some great guests coming, and I feel like this was a heck of a good start to that promise. And plenty more where that came from. I'm talking with Barry Strahan, Executive Director of Louisiana Truck Shows, next week. We'll talk about trucking, his trucking career, and his upcoming 3rd annual Louisiana Truck Show in October. And speaking of truck shows, summer truck show season is in full swing, with events going on pretty much everywhere this time of year. Check out the website, thetruckshowlist.com. The Gulf Coast Truck Show was this past weekend in Mississippi. That one looked like a ton of fun. Great photos coming out of there. Sad I missed that one. Barry was there, so maybe he can tell us a little bit about it. Also, I spoke with Lee Owens this week. He's the organizer of American Truckers Jubilee, also in October in Searcy, Arkansas. The Channel 19 Experience is helping sponsor an event at their show in remembrance of Bill Weaver. Lee's going to be on the podcast at some point before their truck show. So check those out and all the other shows going on this summer and fall. Sounds like I'll be spending part of my October in between Louisiana and Arkansas. I'll be honest, I looked at the map and the route. I don't think I ever drove that route before. So if anybody's got recommendations for the best food on that stretch between Lafayette and up towards Little Rock and Searcy, be sure to hit me up somehow, some way. And be sure to keep reaching out if you'd like to be on the program. Like, follow, comment, subscribe, leave us a review. There's a Be a Guest form on the website. Email us at inbox@channel19experience.com. Keep sharing with your friends. Thanks for listening and see y'all next week. We've got work to do.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.